Welcome back to College Football Addiction. The playoffs here finally. Zach Smith, Minister Sports. How you doing, bud?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good. I'm excited for. I've said this a couple of times, but not a huge 12 team guy, not a huge expansion guy. But I could not be more excited for these playoff games. Now that they're
Right.
here, now that
Right.
it's coming, it feels like it's pretty wide open. I'm pretty excited. So
It's one of those things where I think we'd be fine without it. I think things were fine without it, but since we have it, Saturday's going to be fucking just awesome.
yeah, I'm not going to complain about four massive games between Friday
No.
night and then all day Saturday. So let's talk a little Tennessee, Ohio State. Has the I mean, the answer is no to this, but how much are people's minds still on the loss to Michigan, and how much have they moved on yet, or is that just still there?
No, they can't move on. They'll never move on, ever. And honestly, every time Ryan Day speaks, has media availability, anytime anybody talks, the fan base gets pissed off again. It's hilarious. I mean, and there is a narrative being spun by everyone at Ohio State to try to get fans back in a positive mindset that like they're in the 12-team playoff. That was the goal all year. And it's just pissing them off even more. They're like, hold up. So the goal wasn't to beat Michigan? This is bullshit. This guy's not my coach. Like they're furious.
Do you think that, and I don't know if just from what Ryan Day has said or from folks that you kind of know in or around the program, do you think the team has moved off of it better than the fan base?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I think they know what time it is. I mean, we saw this back in 2022 when they lost to Michigan, didn't get to go to the Big Ten championship, but they were still in the 14 playoff. And I guess I'm hopeful, but I also kind of expect them to react similar to that team because they came out against Georgia hair on fire, played one of their best games, and I mean, they were a field goal away from a national championship. So I hope that's what happens for Ryan Day's sake, certainly, because if he loses to Tennessee, boy, I mean, it's going to be really, really hot up here.
Yeah, it feels like it feels like it's a must win. Like Tennessee, I feel like probably just happy to be there. I'm sure their fans want to win. Like nobody goes to this and they're like, oh, well, we're just glad to be there. But it feels like a must win for Ryan Day. I mean, and I know you've probably broken this game down a ton, but just in your mind, we haven't talked about it. What are the issues that happen within and with the Michigan game something you view as more of a one-off, or do you think that that's something that could haunt them this week?
No, I think it's totally irrelevant to any other game they ever play. Ryan Day had a tight butthole and couldn't call the game, took over play calling. It felt like, which certainly will never get confirmed publicly. And it was a disaster offensive game plan. And it solely was, I think, fear of losing for a fourth time to that rival and what that would look like. And because of it, here he is sitting here 0-4 in the last 4 years against Michigan. I don't think that happens again. I think they come out with their hair on fire against Tennessee because he might feel some pressure in losing this game, but I think the AD has given him a vote of confidence, which is not always a good thing, but I think he knows what he has to do, and I think he probably woke up Sunday, rewatched that game, and just vomited for the entire day at his role in that loss.
So when you look at Tennessee, kind of talks about they've had some ups and downs, shown some good things, shown some bad things, and they were kind of the team that nobody was mentioning that kind of got to sneak in on that kind of tragic SEC Saturday where everybody lost except for them. Just how do Nico's been up and down, certainly looked better kind of later in the year. They kind of had their way with Vandy, which again, I don't know how bought in I am on Vandy,
Right.
although they were better than normal. Where do you think Tennessee is in this thing? Like I know you do a lot of national stuff too, not just Ohio State, but just overall thoughts on Tennessee.
I mean, I think Tennessee, this is the first Tennessee team that I've seen in recent memory since Phil Fulmer that is actually somewhat of a national championship contender. I know they made the playoffs, so that's somewhat obvious, but I think this team really could win it all. If Nico throws the ball well and he's accurate and doesn't sail the ball like he's had a tendency to do, with this run game and Dylan Sampson, it's the best run game in the SEC for sure, and he's the best running back in the SEC, maybe the country. I know people will talk about Ashton Genty, but I love this kid. I mean, Georgia was able to shut down the run game, but not him. He was able to still make guys miss, find his own creases. He's a special player. And for years up here they've talked about, oh, I'd love to see one of them SEC teams come up here in the cold. It's like, all right, Bucko, you got one. And unfortunately for you, it's probably the SEC team that's best fit to play in cold weather because they have a great run game, and then their defense is lights out. They have a championship caliber defense, top 5 in almost every analytic, and I think they're going to poise a lot of problems for Ohio State. It's hard to get that lasting image of Ohio State's game plan against Michigan out of my mind, but I'm trying. I'm trying to just remember that's probably not what they're going to come into this game trying to do. But Ohio State's got a mess on the offensive line. I mean, 3 of their top 6 linemen are out for the remainder of the year, and they're talking about rotating guards. I mean, they're in a world of problems, and I don't know that they're going to be able to get the run game going against this defensive front that Tennessee brings in. They're going to have to throw the ball, and then Ryan Day made excuses at the Michigan game that it was a little windy and they didn't feel like they could throw it. Well, it's going to be windy as shit on the 21st, so they better get over it and figure out how to throw the football. But I think Ohio State's defense is going to do a decent job. They've been great against the run all year. Their secondary's been tested quite a bit, and I think Tennessee will come in trying to do that, much like Oregon did with Dylan Gabriel. And they just got to make plays. I mean, they have a guy, Denzel Burke, was projected a first-round corner, got cooked by Oregon all game long. This is really a kind of a money game for him. He's got to show up against a decent receiving crew. I mean, Chris Brazzell, Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, they got some dudes. Maybe not NFL superstars, but they got a solid receiving core, and it's going to be all in the secondary to shut them down so they can focus on Dylan Sampson in the run game.
Yeah, it feels like how well Nico plays or doesn't is probably the biggest X factor to me. If Nico is hitting guys and they're able to move the ball through if they're just not one-dimensional. If they're one-dimensional and it's all Sampson, it feels like Ohio State will find a way to win. If Nico can hit his targets and hit the downfield pass, which he's shown at times he can do really well, at times he's absolutely terrible at, right? Like, if he has consistency there, I think that could be a big help for Tennessee too. What about on the other side? Can Tennessee, and obviously a lot of it comes down to, Day's game plan and the way that they play offensively. And so maybe it's even hard to answer this, but Tennessee in the secondary, and I know they like some of their guys, but that's a really tough matchup and a really tough ask with Ohio State's wideouts.
No, it definitely is. It's not necessarily. It's not they need to stop the wide receivers that Brian Hartline's brought in, because I don't know that anybody can do that. They have to get after the pass pro, get after Will Howard, and they have to dominate the offensive line and Will Howard, because the receivers are going to make plays. Even if it's a 50-50 ball, you don't like your chances against Jeremiah Smith. So they're going to have to try to scare Ohio State out of throwing the football as much as they probably should by getting after Will Howard's ass. If they do that, Ryan's been known to try to get to the run game, establish the run game, and all of a sudden not forget about the throw game, but rely on short throws, little hitches, little slants, things like that, so that he's throwing the football, but not truly testing a defense downfield. That's what he did against Michigan, and that's kind of how he called the last drive against Oregon too. It's just they need to attack Tennessee vertically, and then Tennessee just needs to not let them by getting after the quarterback.
Yeah. With all the issues on the offensive line, I mean, do you kind of like Tennessee's defensive line, which has been really good this year in that matchup?
Yeah, I don't know who's going to block James Pierce. I mean, Ohio State has a left guard playing left tackle. The right tackle's stiff as a wedding dick. Like, I don't know who's going to block that kid. Like, they're going to have to chip. They're going to have to help. Like, and it's not just him. It's not like he's the only guy who can get after the quarterback, but he's one of the best in the country at it. So they're going to have to do some 7-man pass pro and get real creative with how they slide the line. They're probably going to move the pocket quite a bit. They like to get Will Howard on the move because he's a pretty good athlete, and he throws the ball well on the run just to try to get away from that defensive line.
Do you coaching matchup here? I know fans love to hate Ryan Day right now, so maybe this is an unfair question to ask, but Josh has done a really good job, and they like to move fast. And so just how big of a problem and again, weather could impact things, but how big of a problem is that for Ohio State's defense, which has been really good this year, but just that fast pace, that high ball offense that, I mean, when it's clicking is certainly clicking well.
Yeah. I mean, he does an unbelievable job. I always say it when I do these film breakdowns, he creates grass for players, right? Somehow, some way, whether it's in the run game, quarterback run, wide splits, RPOs, he finds ways to get his best players the ball with grass around them. And that's always a good thing. And he does it so uniquely with the tempo and wide splits that force guys to play in space that don't normally play in space, especially coming from the Big Ten. There's not a lot of teams that try to get guys in space. It's more pack them in and just run right at you type of league. So I think it's going to pose a lot of problems. The tempo is also difficult because it's hard to mimic. Like you got to think about it. They're so good at going fast. How good can Ohio State's scout team or even second offense be at mimicking that speed? I think back when we played Oklahoma in the national championship game in 08, that was Kevin Wilson's deal with Sam Bradford and the great players they had at Oklahoma. They went so fast that it was impossible to replicate as you prepared for them. And that's kind of Tennessee's deal. Can they get those cheap yards, those you didn't get lined up fast enough and they got a free hitch, a free out route or whatever it is? Heupel has done an unbelievable job at that. And most teams that do stuff like that don't come with a top 5 defense, right? You think about the no huddle teams of past, the Rich Rods and all the people that made it famous, right? They never had great defenses. So they did that because they knew they had to score a lot. This Tennessee defense is the real deal. And that's why they're a contender, because they're doing that offensively packed with a great defense.
Who is if you have an X factor for Ohio State, like somebody go take it over, maybe Jeremiah Smith's an answer that a lot of people would point to too, but just an X factor that could go really take this thing over and really needs to play well for Ohio State to win at home this weekend.
It's Will Howard. I mean, you saw him throw 2 interceptions against Michigan, and then I think it's kind of a facade, but that they couldn't throw it downfield because it was windy. It's like, dude, you are the quarterback at Ohio State with this loaded roster. You're the guy that's supposed to be driving them to a national championship. If he doesn't get it done, they're not going to win the game. Point blank. I mean, those receivers are going to make plays if plays are there to be made. He's got to let there be plays there to be made. If he can just get the ball in the air to Jeremiah Smith, there's not many corners that are going to cover him. I mean, he threw 2 deep balls against Michigan to Jeremiah Smith. Both resulted in pass interferences. Both were also thrown really well. And then Ryan Day came out and said, we didn't feel like we could throw it downfield because of the wind. And you're watching the game like, based on what? The 2 times he threw great balls and you got 15-yard penalties. And that's kind of what teams have had to do to Jeremiah, which is crazy. We're talking about a freshman, but he's just got to get the ball up in the air and make it catchable, playable. And I think that they'll be able to move the ball.
It's early in the week. Ohio State about a touchdown favorite. Do you lean Ohio State here? You don't have to do an official prediction or anything because we're on Monday, but do you think Ohio State finds a way to win it?
I mean, based on what I see on film, no, but they will. I mean, somehow they're, and I saw it with CJ Stroud, right? I love CJ Stroud when he played at Ohio State, but he just never let it hang. You know what I mean? He never just laid it all on the field. So going to the Georgia matchup, I was like, no shot. Because he would have to do something that I've never seen him do. Well, damn me if he didn't. He let it hang and played like a baller. So based on what I've seen, my logical brain would say Tennessee's going to win this game, but Ohio State's going to find a way to become something they haven't been all year, and they're going to play a totally different, I guess, energy of football. So I think Ohio State wins. I think it's going to be a close game, and there's going to be adversity, but I think Ryan Day is going to be the Ryan Day we saw in 2022 against Georgia, where veins are popping out of his neck, look like he snorted Adderall before the game or something, just out of his mind. The Ryan Day we all hope and dream for up here in Columbus.
The coolest aspect of this is the whole home stadium thing. And it's just something that we've, as much as I like to hate on, everyone in power in college football because they all suck. This is the best aspect. This is the coolest part of it, getting to play home playoff games. Again, the whole idea of the SEC teams, they never have to come up and see us. They never, right. We got 3 of them, right? Not necessarily SEC teams, but 3 games up in cold weather this weekend. This home aspect, I mean, Columbus has to, as mad as they have to be, a few weeks ago, Columbus has to be just insane on Saturday.
Oh yeah, it's going to be nuts. I think the playoff committee really kind of sold a pipe dream, though. I mean, the stuff that they've reported, or at least Ohio State has informed people that is going on, where they have to cover up all their logos, and the CFP is going to run all audio and video, and it's like, so you're not going to get your home crowd playing a certain song on third down, or Tennessee's going to have an intro video. It's not truly a home game outside of the fact it's in Columbus. But Buckeye fans are still, I mean, they're fired up for this one. And it's honestly, they're going to this game apprehensive, all right, Ryan Day, if you really are him, you really are going to be our coach, prove it. They're not coming in super confident, like we're going to beat Tennessee. It's like, no. They're showing up kind of like, we'll see what this dude's all really about.
We're either going to be ecstatic or we're firing you after this thing.
For sure.
Zach, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
Oh, all over the place. Menace to Sports is my show, and it's everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, live at noon every day, Monday through Friday, and then all the social medias.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, buddy. Good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it.